So I've gotten this question for a number of months, maybe, and then things changed when we got to the Kursk invasion. But before the Kursk invasion, I kept seeing. So how long can the Ukrainians stay? How long can they continue to fight? When will they give up? And so I'm not the guy that's on the ground. Greg Terry is the guy that's on the ground. He has his ear to the ground. He's running the lines. He's there. So we're asking Greg. Greg, tell us, how would you answer that question? What would you say is the mood, the temperament, the disposition, the feeling, the morale of Ukrainians? How would they answer that question?
Thank you, Prof. Um, Really easy to answer that question. You and I have discussed this a little bit off camera, and I can tell you there are three things that every soldier states. And I shared a couple things with you, and you said, you know what, let's make a video about this. I do have a video I will show in just a moment, but the soldiers say three things. Number one, we are fighting for our freedom and our sovereignty, and we are fighting for what is right. And even now, now 2024, they even will say things like, we know we are also fighting for the world. We're beginning to recognize that now. But initially, first couple of years, we're fighting for our freedom, our sovereignty, our borders, our way of life, our culture. That's one.
Okay,
Number
let's stop
two,
after one.
okay?
No, hold on before we go to number two. But Russia says they're fighting for the freedom of Russian speakers within Ukraine, which is nonsense. It's a territorial grab, but they can say that. But saying that is not the same thing as actually believing it, right? You
Correct.
can
That is
say
the
things all
narrative.
day long. Yeah.
Starsky has been putting out some videos, and I highly recommend you guys watch them, where he is trying to explain where the West does not understand Ukraine and the
Hmm.
West does not understand the Kremlin. And the West doesn't. Let me be very clear. Let's just take the language.
Hmm.
The language has nothing to do with this war. More than 50% of the soldiers fighting on the front lines for Ukraine are Ukrainian and they speak Russian.
Hmm.
People will say, well, it's in the East and it's in the South. Sorry, that argument is invalid because many of the guys fighting on the front lines are from Central and Western Ukraine. Additionally, just a few days ago when I crossed the border, I had to get some humanitarian aid in, some tourniquets, gauze, all of this different stuff that all of our communities together purchase for us to deliver. And when I came to the border, I had to deal with some documentation and conversations. And the border agent was speaking to me in Ukrainian. And I looked at him. I said, sorry, we can speak English or Russian because my Ukrainian is poor. And he says, no problem. Let's speak in Russian. Our entire conversation was in the Russian language on the
Hmm.
western border between Poland and Lviv with no problems. So
Hmm.
that's really a misnomer that is spewed forth by Russian propaganda in the Kremlin.
Okay. Number two.
Number two, Ukrainians are not only fighting for their freedom, but they are fighting for their families.
Hmm.
This is both, we would say our children, right? But the reality is there are thousands and thousands of grandfathers fighting on the front lines of Ukraine, unfortunately. And they will tell you, I'm fighting for my children and I'm fighting for my grandchildren. I'm fighting for my wife. I'm fighting for my cousin, for my uncle. They literally are fighting for the survival of their family lines, heritage, history. And it's so interesting. Every soldier that I have encountered, I ask this question all the time: how long
Hmm.
will it keep going? And their answer is in Ukrainian, do peremoga, which translated means until victory. But in that, absolutely there is no quit because they are fighting for their families.
Yeah, for Putin, this is a war of convenience in many ways, and for Ukrainians, it's an existential threat. There's a significant difference between um, I want to take territory and look great, or even I just want to survive because I've been sent there. And no, my wife and kids are back there, and I've got to stop this. Uh, I would do
I
very many things to stop a bad guy from hurting my wife and kids. So
That's
I
exactly
totally get that.
what I was going to suggest. No matter where you're at in this world and you're watching this video, you would also agree, whether it's a mama or a father or a grandfather, uncle, aunt, if there was a threat to your home where your
Mhm.
children were in harm's way, you would protect them. It's
Yep.
just humanity. And that is the second reason that Ukraine will not give up.
Okay. 3.
Are you ready for the third? Let's preface the third with a video. Ready?
Mhm.
Hey there, everybody. Just want you to know we have safely made it, or I have safely made it. I'm in Ukraine. I'm in Lviv. And Eugenia just picked me up at the train station. I haven't slept in 2 days. And on the way to our home base there in Khmelnytsky City. And I try to share with you guys all the time the reality of this war. And we're coming out of Lviv right now. And I'm in one of the dead center areas of Lviv. And I look to my right, and there's a cemetery there being built that's just for soldiers. So, guys, I'm going to show you the reality of what Ukraine is facing right now. And if you think for 1 second that Ukraine is not losing thousands of their best and brightest, this is just Lviv. I see this everywhere, all over Ukraine. And yes, I want you to see it too. So, here we are. So, they're building this, of course, the Ukrainian flag, the trident. But, guys, every flag represents a soldier that has given his life. Guys, this is just Lviv. And this is just one cemetery. This is the first thing that hits me in the face as soon as I get off the train here in Lviv. It's more important that we stand with Ukraine now. This, guys, this is reality.
Yeah, sometimes it's easy to look at this and go, well, X number of Russians are off the battlefield. 1,130, I think, was today or something. I mean, there's also a cost on the other side, and they can't play the same game as the Russians. But and even when they don't play the same game, they're still incurring casualties, and we can't forget it. The trick is that we can't believe anything that Russia says, because Russia will be like, they're losing 5 times as many as we are, and the Russian math doesn't always make sense
No,
either. So,
no. But, for this particular update and video today, we're talking about why Ukraine will not quit. And that is just one example. There are multiple cemeteries like that all throughout Lviv, and then all throughout this country. There is a particular cemetery that I go by in Kharkiv, and I think if I get by there here in a few days, I will stop and video it. It is at least 2 kilometers long,
hmm,
and the flags look just like that, and it's just in one region of Kharkiv. And I didn't catch this until later. But when I'm making that video a couple of days ago, I state, unfortunately, Ukraine is losing their brightest and best. And when I got back into the van with Zhenya, he looked at me, and I can see the pressure on him. He's war torn and going 24/7 nonstop. And he looked at me and he goes, "You know what's really bad about that?" I said, "Well, I've got ideas, but what do you think?" He goes, "That's our brightest and our best." And that cost is so expensive. But that brings me to reason number 3 why Ukraine will never give up. Every soldier I have communicated with, and through 913 days of this war, it's literally thousands. When I ask them, are we going to give up? Are we going to quit? Or what are we doing? We're going to victory, Greg. We're going to victory. And that's what I want to hear. But I want to hear them tell me. Every soldier has told me, Greg, I will never quit because when this war started or I joined the army, I made a pact, I made an agreement, I made a bond with my fellow soldiers, the Antons, Nikolas, the Olegs, the Igors, the Natalias, the Svetlanas. We made a pact as a family and as a group of soldiers for our country that we will honor each other in death. So they tell me, and for me, this is the most important reason, even more so than the family, more so than politics and borders and language and culture. These guys have made a pact with their fellow soldiers,
Yeah.
and every soldier has lost many brothers and sisters. I personally have lost many brothers and sisters, and I'm an American who has just been working here 26 years. Think about being a Ukrainian and knowing so many people. They've given their lives, and these guys have made a commitment. We will not let their death be in vain. So, that to me, in my opinion, is the most important reason Ukraine will never quit in this war.
Yeah, as you were talking, I had two different thoughts. The first was like every politician before they drop out are saying, "I'm in it for the long haul. I'm never going to quit." I'm right, but that's convenience trying to convince the opponent that they're still viable and they're still in it, or convince the voters or whatever. But what you described was called a commitment device. A commitment device is something that you do before you start. I do this to my students, right? Like I ask them to write down what are you going to do when times get hard to make sure that you get your studying done, you get your homework done, you get you know you're prepared for your test, that kind of thing. And if they write it down, if they commit to it, if they say I'm going to call so and so and before this happens, or if they do those kind of things, then they're many times more likely to stick to it because their word is now kind of causing them to want to be consistent with their own who they feel they are. And so this is only on steroids when they're making that commitment before they're even starting with their uh, colleagues, with their coworkers, with their uh, fellow soldiers, when they're thinking through this with them. And then when they experience that loss, they don't want to let these guys down. Like I'm not going to be the one to let them down. So that commitment device is going to be very strong. So between two and three, you're fighting for your family, and a commitment device, I don't see them
There's no
being
quit.
being willing to stop until they have nothing left.
I
And,
can tell
and
you point blank, I was with Pete's unit, and I will be back with Pete's unit. And I'm telling you, after Pete lost his life, and so tragically in his fighting for truth for Ukraine and for the world, his commander and his fellow soldiers, his close unit, whom I know very well, I could see pure anger in them. Like,
Mhm.
now you've really made us mad because this is our brother who is not
Mhm.
even Ukrainian and came here to fight for us, and he's gone. There is no way we quit now.
Yeah.
And I know that right now, especially, and we can talk about this on another video, but with Kursk, and we're having some success there, and it's changing some perspectives of the war. On the
Yeah.
opposite side of that, we're having challenges in Pokrovsk. So we've got good news, some bad news, but
Yeah.
that's war. The reality is, though, when it comes to the zero line and the soldiers, they are not quitting. They're more emboldened than ever.
Mhm.
And that's a good thing right now.
Right. The moral is to the physical is 3 is to 1, right? The morale issue is huge. And for the Russians, yes, they don't want to die, but they don't really have a stake in it like the Ukrainians do. And so there's something psychologically really powerful here. Okay, so we answered the question that we're going to answer in the video. I want to circle back to in my live stream this morning, you raised a fascinating point. This is just a bonus. Okay, so in my live stream, you put a comment in there talking about how Putin thinks about Kursk as no different than he thinks about Zaporizhia or Donetsk. That's a wild thought to my mind. I mean, I had never thought about it like that before. Unpack what you were saying, because I was saying like I can't understand. Like he's willing to lose part of actual sovereign Russia in order to try to take Pokrovsk.
Mhm.
So that's where you said what you said. So unpack that.
Okay, well, it's very simple. All right, 22, thank you. They
Yeah.
put it in their constitution that those are sovereign Russian territories. Now,
Hmm.
with that said, they now, in their demented way, especially Putin,
Hmm.
views that as Russia. And right now, they are leveling their own nation for the
Hmm.
liberation of their nation. So
It's pretty bizarre.
when Ukraine comes into Kursk, I'm telling you, the Soviet mentality, they look at the Kursk region no different than they look at Kharkiv and Donetsk and Zaporizhia and Kherson. Okay, well, if we need to lose some ground and lose some people and destroy some towns for the ultimate goal to liberate Ukraine and to set our people free, then that's just a part of the price. So, people are looking at it analytically going, well, this incursion is going to cost this. It's going to cost this. What is Putin's response going to be? Guys, he doesn't
Yeah.
care. He doesn't care.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. Well, I mean, like life is not as meaningful to begin with, so that's already there. But he certainly doesn't he have a feeling that he's just gotten a big black eye by Ukraine spilling across
oh, for
Russian.
sure, for sure.
Okay,
And
but as far as
there will
yeah,
be a
but
response.
as far as the Donetsk as opposed to Kursk, he looks at it as all his anyway.
Absolutely.
Is
It's
what
all
you're saying? Yeah.
his. Completely his. What he wants right now, and I'm going to be honest with you because we do tell the truth, he wants Pokrovsk.
Oh yeah,
Listen,
absolutely.
Bakhmut, the famous battle city for months and months and months. Big city, 105,000 people pre war, not strategically important.
Hmm.
Chasiv Yar, we hear about that nonstop, not strategically important. Even Konstantinivka and Kramatorsk, yeah, mildly strategically important.
Hmm.
But guys, Pokrovsk is the supply line,
Hmm.
and they know it. We're coming out of summer, we're coming into fall and winter where the weather will change, and other routes that you can work around Pokrovsk through dirt
Okay.
roads, not
Bonus
passable.
number two.
Uh-oh.
Bonus number two. I want to know what your prediction is here. So, by my calculation, so I was looking at the ISW this morning in my daily brief. The Russians picked up another 400 meters, a
Mhm,
quarter of a mile, and you calculated last night. What was it, 9 kilometers? So that's
mhm,
about 6 miles or less.
mhm.
And by that calculation, if they pick that up daily, and it might get harder as they go forward, but you're looking at about a month before they're at Pacross or in Pacross. If they keep going on a trajectory, all other things being equal. Now, again, all other things being equal is quite a caveat, right? So it's now August 24th. September 24th, it's starting to turn cold, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay,
And
so
don't
if they can
misunderstand,
hold
it's not
out,
snowing, but the weather changes significantly,
and then it's going to get rainy though, right? I mean, is the rainy
terribly.
season
Yes.
right? And so will will the weather will general winter come to Ukraine's aid here?
I hope so.
So I mean that's a
Listen,
possibility
listen,
here, right? If they can just hold.
there's something you need to understand here, and it's this. To the right of Pokrovsk is a little town called Mirnograd. Mirnograd is a vitally important thoroughfare pushing east. It's a
Hmm.
decent sized place. And I do not want people to misunderstand when you say, okay, well, they're coming, they're 9 kilometers. They're within artillery range. They're within drone range. They're within FPV range, which they are. All of the above. Ukrainians are evacuating. Well, some don't want to take their children out. The same story we've heard the whole war. But guys, there's a difference. Mirnograd is already 98% destroyed.
Yeah.
I'm in Mirnograd all the time. I will be in Pokrovsk very soon. These cities, especially Mirnograd, which is the gateway for them to push into Pokrovsk, it's already destroyed. So it's not like it needs to be destroyed inch by inch, their modus operandi, and then we move forward. Right now, okay, you brought it up, so I'll just tell you. Kursk is great. Great. And
Sure.
I can tell you also that there will be good news coming from the Kharkiv direction soon.
Yeah, they're pushing.
Soon. I can't tell the details of it, but I know. And I know it's getting out there, but
From open sources, you can see that they have
you
pushed
can.
in.
But there's
Yeah.
much more than that.
Yeah.
Really good news. Really good news. But Kursk and Kharkiv, they're not even remotely as important as Pokrovsk. Please understand, without Pokrovsk, we have very limited supply lines to the southern front and to the eastern front. Very limited. In that region, okay, people will say, well, they can still get there through dirt roads. Guys, they can't get tractor trailers through dirt roads in rainy weather full of supplies. It's heavy equipment will be bogged down. And there's a pretty big risk going right now with some of the movement of Ukrainian troops. And hopefully we get across shored up and defended better quickly. It's important.
Okay. Well, any last things that you want to
just
add
thank you.
here? We already had the 2 bonuses.
Well, it's what happens in a professor's class. And for those of you that are watching on my channel, make sure you go there. The name's at the bottom. Professor Gerdes Explains. Please subscribe to his channel. His
Likewise with
nonstop.
Greg's channel. If you're not familiar with, I don't understand how you're like a best kept secret, because your channel's been growing.
Yes.
But there should be far more people watching with the amount of knowledge and expertise that you bring to this. So
well,
go
thank
to
you.
add Greg Terry Experience, and you'll see what's going on there. You'll see a lot of our collaborations because we tend to do things on the same, like, work together quite a bit. So, but please subscribe to Greg's channel as well.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. And yeah, it's a lot of stuff. I'll be running the front lines for the next 30 days, and Professor and I will be doing more videos like this. This is kind of nice. Take 2 or 3 topics and just record it versus being a live, because I'm typically a live guy. But we're going to do our best to bring the good news and the reality of the great things Ukraine is doing, but at the same time, the truth on other areas where they need help. And therefore, the world can respond and give them the help.
At what point, let me ask you this, at what point is winter such that Pokrovsk can breathe more easily?
Pokrovsk cannot breathe easily ever because it's within drone range.
But they won't be able to prosecute the war in the same way.
I need you to understand something. Just one thing. They're within FPV range.
Right. And so it's all,
there's no safety.
You're just going to keep getting hammered.
They will kill anything that moves. Children in the streets. It will change everything. And that's why Ukraine needed to hold them back 20 kilometers. FPVs are now in the game for Pokrovsk, and it's horribly dangerous there. Horribly dangerous.
Yeah. So let me revise my question. At what point, or is there a point that it lessens because of weather, or is it just not, weather's not going to make the difference?
Whether
where they can't send meat wave infantry, kind of stuff. That's
weather will make the difference if they want to physically take it. And I mean the urban warfare move
Right.
block by block, level it, and physically take the city. Weather will have a
Okay.
major impact. But
But in the meantime, they can just continue to harass and just pelt
destroy
them
it,
until that time. Yeah.
destroy it. And with it being in FPV range, which it is, with it being in artillery range, which it is, that already limits the supply lines. I
Yeah.
was talking last night with a guy who told me point blank, Greg, the roads we typically take, and even that I drive on Virginia, we run the same
Mhm.
roads, completely closed. It's
Mhm.
already a problem. They're closed because of the drones and the artillery.
Okay. Well,
So we'll see.
that's some brilliant insight to help us understand where we are. And I'm always trying to provide context. And I am not foolish enough to think that I know what's on the ground like you do.
Mhm.
So, all right,
Well,
Greg. Thank
always
you.
remember this, Prof, and for all of your wonderful viewers there, once you get within FPV drone range, the
Mhm.
game changes. The
Yeah.
game changes. Yesterday, I will tell you this, through all of our wonderful communities, we donated a personal drone detector to a soldier who had been wounded and he's getting ready to go back. And he was wounded by an FPV drone, 3 of them. He never saw or heard the drone. It was dead
Wh-
silent. Bam.
What is range?
Hmm?
What is the range? How many kilometers?
10
10. Okay.
effectively.
Okay. And I'm sure somebody might be able to push a little bit more,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
generally speaking,
No,
yeah. Yeah.
I give the number 10 because I know it's 100% accurate.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's further. It's further. But 10,
Yeah.
and they're already there. Um, and Покровsk, to be honest, guys, I'm gonna shoot some video from Покrovsk the best I can legally and right and show it later. The infrastructure already in Покrovsk, pretty poor pre-war. It was just one of those more poor cities and towns that was on its way up, and then the war caught it. So it was already pretty tough infrastructure there, and now this.
All right.
All right, buddy.
Well, thanks, Greg. I
Thank you.
appreciate it, and we'll be talking again very soon, I'm sure.
Yes, sir. Have a great evening.